Our Las Vegas getaway was meant to be an escape from the daily grind. Our Las Vegas getaway was meant to be an escape from the daily grind, a chance for my partner and me to unwind in a city known for its vibrant nightlife and luxurious accommodations. We chose a boutique hotel off the Strip, attracted by its exclusive and private ambience, which seemed perfect for a relaxing retreat. But our dream vacation quickly turned into something out of a horror movie. The first 2 days passed without incident, filled with the usual tourist activities, shows, casinos, and some of the best dining Vegas had to offer. The hotel itself was a beautiful blend of modern luxury and subtle opulence, a quiet sanctuary from the bustling energy of the Strip. But on the third day, driven by a desire to explore every corner of our temporary haven, we stumbled upon a part of the hotel that wasn't listed on any guide or map provided at check-in. Located in an older wing of the hotel, a long, dimly lit corridor drew us in. Thick carpets muffled our footsteps, creating an eerie silence as we walked. The hallway seemed less maintained, with flickering lights and a noticeable drop in temperature. At the end of this corridor, we discovered a door, slightly ajar and unmarked, contrasting starkly with the well-kept facade of the rest of the hotel. Curiosity overcame us, and we pushed the door fully open, stepping into a room that looked like something straight out of a psychological thriller. The room was entirely lined with mirrors. These weren't ordinary mirrors. They stretched from floor to ceiling, creating a dizzying array of reflections that multiplied everything endlessly. In the center of the room sat a single piece of furniture, a dark velvet chaise, beneath a large crystal chandelier that emitted a faint, pulsating glow. Initially, we marveled at the bizarre beauty of it, joking about how the room could be a great set for a horror film. However, as we lingered, a chilling discomfort settled over me. It was as if the air in the room grew thicker, colder, charged with a sinister energy. The reflections in the mirrors didn't seem quite right. They seemed to flicker, distort, and then, as if delayed, they followed our movements with unsettling precision. A remembered article flashed through my mind, warning of the dangers of two-way mirrors. I shared my fears with my partner, and together, we performed the fingertip test I had read about, touching the mirror's surface, expecting to see a gap between our fingers and their reflections. But there was no gap. Our fingertips met those of our reflections directly, proof that these were not normal mirrors, but two-way glass. Panic surged as the realization set in that we might have been watched from the moment we entered. We hurried out of the room, but the feeling of being watched clung to us, crawling under our skin. Back in our suite, every shadow seemed to move, every slight noise, a whisper from unseen lips. We felt exposed, vulnerable, no longer alone. That night was sleepless, filled with the sensation of eyes tracking our every move. By morning, our paranoia had reached a fever pitch. I spent hours online, digging through forums and news articles about hotel spy tactics, until I stumbled upon a thread discussing hidden surveillance in hotels, specifically in Las Vegas. Users shared stories eerily similar to ours, describing rooms designed for voyeurism, where unsuspecting guests were monitored and filmed. The thread led to a dark corner of the internet, a marketplace where live feeds from hidden cameras were were sold to the highest bidder. The descriptions matched exactly what we had experienced: the mirrored room, the luxurious setup, everything crafted to create a viewer's paradise at the expense of guests' privacy. Before we could process this horrifying discovery fully, the sound of police sirens and heavy footsteps echoed through the hotel. Officers were raiding the establishment, having been tipped off about the illegal activities taking place behind its elegant facade. They confirmed our worst fears. The mirrored room was part of an elaborate surveillance setup, with one-way mirrors concealing cameras that fed live footage to an international online audience. They escorted us to a concealed control room, revealing a bank of screens showing various live feeds from around the hotel. Among them was our own suite, displayed in real time. The officers explained that this operation had been running for years, with countless victims unknowingly filmed during their stays. The footage was distributed across the dark web, nearly impossible to trace or remove once uploaded. Shaken to our core, we left Las Vegas immediately, our sense of privacy irreparably shattered. Our reflections, once benign companions in daily life, had become reminders of that violation, forever tainted by the memory of eyes that might still be watching.
My last trip to Vegas was supposed to be a thrilling adventure, a final hurrah with my college buddies before settling into the demands of adulthood. We had planned everything from which shows to catch to which casinos to hit, but nothing could have prepared us for how horribly wrong things would go. The evening began like any other Vegas escapade, vibrant and filled with the infectious buzz of potential winnings. We started at a couple of low-key spots, but as the night progressed and our spirits lifted, we found ourselves drawn to one of the more illustrious casinos on the Strip. This place was legendary, known not just for its lavish decor, but also for its high-stakes games and the high rollers who frequented them. As we entered the Grand Casino, the dazzling lights and the clatter of chips felt intoxicating. I made my way to the blackjack tables, while my friends scattered towards roulette and poker. The thrill of the game engulfed me as I began to play. Before long, I was on a winning streak that seemed too good to be true. My stacks of chips grew, and so did the audience around me. Strangers cheered with every hand I won. Drinks flowed more freely, and for a moment, I felt like the king of Vegas. However, my euphoria was short-lived. I noticed a pair of burly security guards whispering and glancing over at me from across the room. Their stern expressions and vigilant demeanor should have been my cue to cash out and leave, but I was too caught up in my winning streak to heed the silent warnings. Just after 4 a.m., at the peak of my luck, the nightmare began. The security guards approached, their faces void of emotion. "Sir, we need you to come with us," one of them said firmly, gripping my arm a little too tightly. Confused and still buzzing from the alcohol, I tried to joke, "Hope it's to give me a prize for all this winning." They didn't laugh. Instead, they led me through a series of winding corridors and into the bowels of the casino. We arrived at a cold, secluded room that looked more like an interrogation cell than anything else. There were no cameras, just a stark metal table and some chairs. The main security officer, a tall, bald man with a thick Russian accent, introduced himself in a tone that chilled the air. "I am Nikolai, and you, my friend, are in very big trouble." His words were deliberate, his gaze piercing. "We've been watching you. You've been counting cards." I protested, insisted it was all just luck, but they weren't buying any of it. They showed me footage of my games, analyzed my winning patterns, and argued no one could be that lucky. The atmosphere turned darker, more threatening. Nikolai stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. This is what happens to cheaters in our casino. Before I could defend myself further, they pinned me to the table. I struggled, but their strength was overpowering. My heart pounded as I felt the first searing pain. A finger forcibly bent back until it snapped. I screamed, a sound muffled by the thick walls as they systematically broke each finger on my right hand. The pain was blinding, each snap a cacophony of agony that echoed off the sterile walls. After they were done, Nikolai leaned in, his cold breath brushing against my ear. "We know who you are, where you live, and we know about your lovely family." He recited my home address, the names of my wife and daughter, a threat veiled thinly under his icy tone. "Imagine what would happen if they found out how much of a cheater you are, or worse." They left me, crumpled on the floor, writhing in agony. I lay there, helpless and broken, until a cleaner found me hours later and called for help. At the hospital, I concocted a story about a mugging, knowing full well that the truth was too frightening to share and too dangerous to my family. I returned home a changed man, haunted by the brutality and the stark warnings of Nikolai. My nights are sleepless, filled with echoes of my own screams and the relentless fear that one day Nikolai's threats might extend beyond that nightmarish room. So heed my cautionary tale. The bright lights of Vegas can quickly turn into the darkest shadows, where the house doesn't just win, it destroys. Remember, behind the allure of the neon lights lies a world willing to break you, piece by piece, should you ever threaten their empire.
It was meant to be the pinnacle of our summer, a legendary music festival in the heart of Las Vegas. My best friend Laura and I had been buzzing with excitement, planning each detail with youthful enthusiasm, from our lineup of bands to the eclectic array of food trucks we'd sample. This trip was more than just a series of concerts. It was supposed to be a celebration of our recent college graduation, a final free-spirited fling before diving into our respective careers. The first hint of trouble was subtle, a mere ripple in the festive atmosphere. As Laura and I navigated through the throng of festival goers, vibrant with the beat of live music and lit by the glow of stage lights, I noticed a man. He was average in every conceivable way: medium height, nondescript clothing, and a forgettable face. Initially, he was just another face in the crowd, but his piercing gaze locked onto me time and again, slicing through the anonymity of the bustling mass. I mentioned my discomfort to Laura, trying to laugh it off as paranoia fueled by the dramatic stories we'd swapped back in our dorm days. However, as the day slipped into evening, my unease grew. Every time we moved stages or queued for drinks, I found his eyes tracking us, always a constant presence in the periphery of my vision. The real fear set in as darkness cloaked the sky. Under the cover of night, the man's appearances grew more frequent. No longer content with distant observation, he began to close the distance, hovering just a few feet away at the last concert we attended that evening. Laura saw the alarm in my eyes and agreed it was time to do something. We decided to leave the show early, hoping to lose him in the crowd as the final act played. But when we reached the parking lot, my breath caught in my throat. There he was, leaning nonchalantly against my car. The parking lot was dimly lit, the sparse overhead lights casting long shadows that seemed to dance menacingly around him. Fueled by adrenaline and terror, we turned and ran back towards the heart of the festival, desperately screaming for help. The festival security reacted swiftly, their serious expressions confirming the gravity of our situation. They escorted us back to the parking lot, which now felt like a crime scene, but he had vanished into the night. The police arrived shortly after, their questions routine, their notes perfunctory. They assured us they would patrol the area and keep an eye out, but their lack of urgency left me feeling exposed and vulnerable. As we drove home, every headlight that appeared in my rearview mirror made my heart skip. Each shadow by the roadside, a potential threat. Back home, the sanctity of my own space provided little relief. The echo of his footsteps seemed to follow me into my dreams. Each night, a replay of the terror. I became a prisoner in my home, curtains perpetually drawn, every noise a reason to start. Laura stayed over often, her company a small comfort against the backdrop of my growing paranoia. Determined to reclaim some semblance of normalcy, I threw myself into preventive measures. I attended self-defense classes, invested in a more robust security system, and even met with a therapist to work through the lingering fear. Social media became both a sanctuary and a battlefield, as I searched for others who might have encountered the same stalker, finding solace in their stories and shared experiences. Months passed with no sign of him, but the damage was done. I could no longer enjoy the carefree outings that had once colored my life with so much joy. Every plan was scrutinized for safety, every outing mapped with escape routes. The festival, once a beacon of youthful adventure, is now a stark reminder of vulnerability. I learned the hard way that danger can lurk even in moments of celebration, masked by the crowd's exhilaration. It taught me to trust my instincts, to recognize when a seemingly innocent gaze crosses the line into a threat. Now, I approach life differently, always aware, always watching. Because sometimes, the most terrifying dangers are those hidden in plain sight, waiting for a moment of weakness to strike. And while I may never forget that night, I refuse to let it define me.